one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll call?
Councilmember Bill De La Pena.
Present.
Councilmember Engler.
Present.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Adam.
Here.
Mayor McCoy.
Present. We have no request for continuance of any public hearing or agenda items, so that'll take us to special presentations and announcements. And before I move to the podium, I just wanted to acknowledge Troop 787. They got one of their scouts here. Stand up. Let them all see you. Welcome. Now you better get that merit badge. You got it? All right. I'll move to the speaker. All ambassadors of Donate for Life to the podium, if you guys would come on up. And while you're headed this way, let me read a little bit about it. Donate for Life is a nonprofit organ and tissue donor registry dedicated to saving the lives of thousands of Californians awaiting life-saving transplants. The Belko family became involved in organ donor advocacy after their son Michael, at age 20, saved the lives of 8 people through organ donation. In order to encourage the Thousand Oaks residents to participate in the Donate for Life California Donor Registry, we are proclaiming the month of April as DMV Donate Life California Month. I'm sorry that it took that to bring you here, but I wanted to say thank you on behalf of the city. And I also want to let you know one of our pastors is in need of an organ. And one of the members of the congregation stepped forward. So, and I have that on my license. I'm ready to do the same as well. Thank you for all you do. Do you want to share a little bit and tell us about it? Oh, no. Come on, tell us a little bit about it. Anything?
No.
Come on over here.
We just want to say thank you to Mr. Mayor and the council. And it was a tragic accident, losing our son. But this is a way of it made a bad thing a good thing by saving lives, and this is a deep cause for us, and it actually does save lives, and there's people waiting for organ and tissue. So I want to say thank you.
You bet. Bless you. I'm so sorry. Well, I'm going to read this to you, all right? On behalf of a grateful city. Whereas organ tissue, marrow, and blood donations are life-giving acts recognized worldwide as expressions of compassion to those in need, and more than 113,000 individuals nationwide and more than 21,000 in California are currently on the National Organ Transplant waiting list, and on average 20 people die each day while waiting due to the shortage of donated organs. And whereas the need for donated organs is especially urgent in Hispanic and African American communities, and whereas more than 600,000 units of blood per year are needed to meet the need in California, and at any given time, 6,000 patients are in need of volunteer marrow donors. California residents can sign up with Donate for Life Registry when applying for renewing their driver's licenses or ID cards at the California Department of Motor Vehicles, and over 15 million Californians have signed up with the registry. That is remarkable. Thank you for all you do, and God bless you guys. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I want to hug her. Let's take a picture. Our next presentation, I'd like to invite Betsy Cooper, President-elect of the Ventura County Chapter of American Public Works Association, to the podium. Betsy has an award for our Public Works Department that she'd like to present, and joining her will be Nader Haidari, and the city's engineer of division manager, and Mike Tohidian. Tohidian is really a inch beses, lavem, shinor hagalam. That's Armenian, if you're wondering. Our senior engineer who will accept the award on behalf of the city. So come on up, Betsy. Where are you? There you are.
Hi, my name is Betsy Cooper. I am the Water Resource Manager for the City of Ventura, and I am here on behalf of the American Public Works Association to present the 2018 Ventura County Chapter Public of the Year Award to the City of Thousand Oaks for their work on the Westlake Boulevard Sidewalk and Bike Lane Improvement Project. Just a couple comments about APWA. APWA is a nationwide organization that has over 28,000 members with the goal of improving infrastructure in communities nationwide. Our local Ventura County chapter has nearly 300 members and is one of the most active branches of all the 63 chapters nationwide. The City of Thousand Oaks staff is very active in our local chapter. Jay Spurgeon is our current chapter delegate. Nader Haidari, sorry, Nader, is our current treasurer, and I know Nader very well, and I don't know why I just mispronounced his name. And Cliff Finley is a past president, so City of Thousand Oaks staff's very active in our local chapter. With that, I'd like to invite Mike and Nader up to the podium. A couple comments about the project. The project is a $1.47 million project. It helped greatly improve pedestrian and bike safety on Westlake Boulevard between Triumphal Canyon Road to the US 101 ramps. The project provided new continuous sidewalks. It provided enhanced bicycle markings and highly visibility crosswalks. It was designed to minimize impacts to existing mature trees, and it provided overall roadway beautification. And of course, the success of a project like this couldn't have been completed without the support of the City Council, City Mayor, and the dedicated staff at City of Thousand Oaks. So with that, I would like to present this award to Mike, who was the City of Thousand Oaks project manager on this project. So congratulations. Mike.
Can we take a picture?
Oh, sure.
Come on, let's do it. Oh. If John Brooks could come on up, I have a presentation, proclamation in honor of Arbor Day, Arbor Earth Day. I think it was started by Sterling Morton. There you are. Hi. Good to see you. Started by Sterling Morton in Nebraska. Planted over 1 million trees. That's a good thing for Nebraska. And it's been going on ever since. I'm not going to read the whole proclamation, but is there anything you'd like to share in relation to Arbor Day? Come on.
Yeah. Happy to. Put this on our slide, and if we can get that up on the screen there, it looks like it's there. This is a little bit about the Arbor Earth Day that we're going to be having this year, Saturday, April 27th from 10 to 2 at the Grant Brimhall Library. And you can see the flyer here, and you can get more details at our website, which is tokes.org/AE Day. But we've got a lot of things going on. So we've got Are You Electric Vehicle Curious? Over 10% of the vehicles being sold monthly now in California, electric vehicle. Presentations on that. Solar and battery storage, nature neighbors, find out from a local biologist how we can be better neighbors with the local wildlife here. Healthy soils workshops, and our own city arborist is going to talk about kind of the recent fires and how you can better firescape your house. It's called firescaping, and that's using your landscape to help control the fires in your area. And of course, there's going to be booths and exhibitors, and we've got presentation or live entertainment from Lacey May, Paige Peel, Second Step, and more. And of course, you can win a Tesla. Now, that's only for the weekend, but you can come out there. We've got a lot of giveaways, including Tesla, compost, other things. So we want you to join us April 27th from 10 to 2, Grant Brimhall Library. And again, go to toaks.org/AE Day for more information. Thanks.
Want a picture with that? Thank you for your patience, everybody. Now we're going to come to public comments. So, Madam Clerk, will you get us set for that?
This is a time and place for public comments. A speaker card is available for those wishing to address the City Council regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. All remarks should be addressed to the City Council as a whole, and all documents for City Council and the official record should be presented to the City Clerk prior to speaking. Speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. Under state law, public comment matters may not be considered by the council unless listed on the agenda, but may be referred to the city manager for administrative follow-up. 15 individuals have presented cards, and pursuant to council standards, speakers are allowed 3 minutes. The yellow light displays when you have 1 minute remaining.
Well, before we begin with the public speakers, I know there's a number of folks here tonight in relation to 5G. And I wanted to let you know, as a council, all of us have been drinking from a fire hydrant, wrapping our minds around this. We're so grateful for all your insights and the things you've been sharing with us. I know all of us have had a number of meetings with citizens and have cleared our schedule to try to get to understand it fully. For many of you, this has been a lifelong concern, and you're far more educated in many ways than we are, but we're getting there. One thing I'd like to emphasize, we're a listening ear, and we're going to do our best tonight to hear everything you have to say. But ultimately, I would encourage you, I really would encourage you to put the same effort and zeal into your federal legislators as well. Your Congress member, please, this is the level where it needs to be addressed in its greatest capacity. We're limited as a city government in how we can respond. I imagine a lot of you have ideas of what you think we should do. But suffice it to say, as a city, we've been working on this for a number of years, and we are still fervently looking at a way to respond in the best of our ability. So tonight, we're grateful you're here. Educate us. I just want to let you know, we're not your enemies. I know you're passionate about it and express that, but we're here to listen. So welcome each and every one of you. Trevor Marshall, you're going to set the tone of the evening because you're going to go first. So welcome, Mr. Marshall. Hello, sir. Thanks for coming out tonight. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Dr. Trevor Marshall, and I'm the Director of the Autoimmunity Research Foundation here in Thousand Oaks, and I've been a city resident for 37 years. And what I'm going to talk about is this ordinance that suddenly hit my mailbox a couple of weeks ago, because I don't think the council has been fully informed as to what the issues are. The first page of the handouts I gave you refers to an interview which many of us have seen the video of, and I'll be happy to share the video, 12 months ago, where the Verizon CEO, Lowell McAdam, told CNBC, "We have now busted the myth that it has to be line of sight. It does not. We have busted the myth that foliage will shut it down. That does not happen. And the 200 feet from a home, we are now designing our 5G network for over 2,000 feet from transmitter to receiver. And yet 200 feet is what I see in this audience a year after Verizon told you about advances in the technology. So was the council advised about this stuff? By whom? The best option that I can see at this point is, while the Ninth Circuit is still considering the legalities, we really need to pull back the ordinance and try and get it a bit more bulletproof. Brussels, just yesterday, the city of Brussels, the head of the EU, has put a halt to all deployment of 5G. And the environment minister here says, 5G, the Brussels people will not be mice for the laboratory. It's in French, but that's what it says.
Thanks for the translation.
It's terrible translation. But what sort of things are we talking about? I'm sure you've heard about cancers and cell phones. But when we're talking about towers, we really need to start thinking about the things that are on my third page, which is an article from Washington Post just 2 or 3 days ago. From mums to medical doctors, burnout is everywhere these days. And nobody knows what causes it. Well, very few of us know what causes it, because the industry has been so effective in shutting down the voice of researchers such as myself. For example, I was one of the signatories I was asked to be one of the signatories for the international appeal to the UN. And I think I'm known better outside of Thousand Oaks than I'm known inside of Thousand Oaks. Anyway, look, from mums to medical doctors, burnout's everywhere. The Washington Post is lamenting, we can't do anything about it. Doctors can't do anything about it. Well, if you look on the next page...
We gotta bring it to a close here because we're up with the 3 minutes.
Right, this is again.
Yes, sir.
If you look on the next page, you'll see a chart which shows the increase in burnout, the increase in symptoms as people get closer and closer to towers. And it's plotted from 300 yards away from a cell tower down to 0. This is a major problem, and it's not going to be made easier if we just allow the telcos to do what they want to do. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for your time. Our next speaker. I already know you're passionate about this, so it would help us. We'll get through the speakers to be able to get as much information as possible. I know how happy you are to hear these folks speak, so if you just restrain a little bit on the clapping, I'd be grateful, because we're really trying to wrap our mind around it. I appreciate that. Michael Ballman, you're up next, and folks, to the best of your ability, try to stay within that 3 minutes. Otherwise, I don't know what they do, but yeah. Welcome, sir. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Mike Ballman. I live in Simi Valley, right over the hill, and I teach math and science at Redwood Middle School. And I've been teaching there about 20 years. I'm here tonight as a Marine in defense of my country. You know, I was thinking tonight about why so many Marines died in all of the wars and battles that they fought in. And isn't it because, you know, they love the freedoms of our country, they love our way of life, they want to defend those who are weak. I see, you know, a great love for my fellow Marines that died in defense of these freedoms. And now I see all that at risk. I'm also here, Mayor, and speaking out against 5G. And, you know, I would like to think that we as a community can come together, encourage, like the Marines that died on the beaches of the South Pacific, You know, nothing, they didn't have any rules that they had to follow. They weren't looking for an okay from the government or anything to do their job. And I was thinking about all of you here today. Do you think that maybe you were elected for such a time as this? Because maybe God knew that you would be needed to defend Thousand Oaks from a great health hazard and other dangers. There will be others speaking about all the specifics. But have you considered that we don't have to be fearful? There's nothing for us to be afraid of. Remember, David fought Goliath, and he won. We should have courage, and I'm here to encourage you, just as I did my fellow Marines that worked under me. I want you all to know that I am on your side, that we here in the audience are your friends. The FCC is not your friend, and the telecoms are not your friends. You're looking at your friends right here, the people that live in this community. And we are here to stand together, and then we will have victory over this danger. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. Linda Poor. Did I say your last name correctly? Oh, good. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Is this one
Yep, that'll work.
a little better?
Just
my
bring it
name's-
close to you so we can hear you if you
Okay,
would.
my name is Linda Poor, and I live in Westlake, which is like part of Thousand Oaks, south of Triumph.
It's the best part of Westlake and the best, yeah, I got it.
Thank you. I'd like to ask all of you a question. It's a yes or no answer, whether you know it or you don't know it. Does anyone here know how many people that live here or work here right now have a medical problem already regarding the cell tower radiation or any kind of radiation, and that are now treating for it currently in our area?
For public comments, I'm permitted to exchange niceties, but it's not on a, so
Okay, no problem.
I can tell you later privately if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. Everyone here has spoken, will be speaking about all the different problems that they find with this.
Okay.
I would like to just point out the fact that we have a number of people that are already dealing with this problem that live here. We also have a lot of children that live here and a lot of seniors that live here, and they are the ones that are more exposed to a probability of having a possible harm to this. I'd like to also point out that Verizon came here quite a few years ago and told everybody we've got to put Fios in and we can have our internet and we can have our phone and our cable, and they put it in for us. And so a lot of this is already in our homes. I don't know if it's a newer type or whatever, but they do. And now Frontier is now doing the same thing, and they're putting it in. So since fiber optics is already something that is safe, it would seem to me that we should be able to do that. Now, I know that you have said the possibility that you can't do anything about it, but there's a possibility of filing a ordinance, which the city can do. You also have an attorney on staff, and for under $1,000, you can also file a lawsuit, and you can have it served, and you can file an injunction, and all the costs would be under $1,000, so they don't have to even come here and be able to put it in and not have it done. You do have that ability because you do have a staff of attorneys if you can't file or pass an ordinance. I mean, I don't know what it is, but you do have a staff here that can do that. And why would you also go to all the trouble of putting all of our electrical wires and all of our telephone wires underground to beautify this place and then want to put up a cell tower on the light posts? It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, those are my points, and everybody else here will speak about all the other things that we can possibly do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Stephanie Wilson, and then after that will be Judy Bruce. Stephanie Wilson and then Judy Bruce. Hello.
Hi, Mayor McCoy, members of the City Council, and hardworking staff. I'm Stephanie Wilson. I'm the Deputy Director for the New West Symphony. We are proud to be a resident company of the Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza, and we're thrilled to be participating in the 25th celebration of these stages. But tonight I'm here to tell you about two very cool things, because when you think of symphony, you think of cool. So the first thing I want to tell you about is a very cool 2 concerts that happened in March. More than 3,000 school children in grades 3 to 6 filled the Kavli Theater for 2 performances of what we call Symphonic Adventures. It's a program that was designed by Carnegie Hall. We go into the schools prior to the event with study guides and train the teachers to prepare the students. It's truly arts education because there's a before, a during, and an after. The kids come in with their recorders, they play along with the symphony, and they literally scream for symphonic music. They think it's cool. So we're very happy that that happened. Thank you for all of your help with that, and thanks to all of our funders for that. The second thing is this Saturday, our new music director, Michael Christie, will be here to conduct our orchestra in his first concert in his official capacity as music director. The concert features pianist Juliana Avdiva, who will be playing Chopin. She is the first place winner of the International Chopin Concert. Very cool. And we'll also be presenting Tchaikovsky and Schumann. So we will be back to present to you on April 23rd, another very cool thing. But in the meantime, thank you for everything. Thank you for your time. And when you think of symphonic music, it's very cool. So not boring and stuffy. So thank you all, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. And that was a wonderful commercial break for our 5G time. New West Symphony. Our next speaker, Judy Bruce. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Judy Bruce. Unfortunately, you have been misled and misinformed about Kramer. He has you afraid of a $250,000 lawsuit, but why hasn't he told you about the potential hundreds of lawsuits because of illness? We are making a plea that all Ventura County mayors work together and hire an independent consultant. We implore you to have the courage to push back from the bully telecoms and Kramer, an obvious industry supporter and spokesman. By doing this, you will end up with an ordinance that gives the local governments the greatest power. Recently, I spoke to Andrew Campanelli. He's an attorney. He used to work for the telecoms until he realized the corruption. He wrote the Calabasas Ordinance, which prohibits wireless facilities in residential zones. A telling quote 2 days ago, he said, "You cannot pay me enough money to have one of these cell towers across the street. I know too much about them." I am convinced you would never have adopted this ordinance if you knew their danger. To prove he has taken advantage of you and many other cities, including Simi Valley, I'm from Simi, excuse me, I'm going to point out some specific areas in your ordinance that are illegal and unconstitutional. And to consider this, realize that there are only 3 laws that the City of Thousand Oaks is currently governed. That is the 1996 Telecommunications Act, the 2012 Spectrum Act, and the 2015 AB 57 bill. Those should be the only laws because they're legislative intent. But this ordinance is completely misaligned to the FCC order, which may well be overturned and is not law at this time. So instead, the last page of the resolution in your ordinance says, comply with the FCC ruling that limits the local authority. The fact is there is no legislative law that says that a city has to comply with an interpretation of the law. Your ordinance says this is exempt from the CEQA, this California Environmental Quality Act. The problem is the cell towers, they're not one at a time. It's a system of hundreds and thousands. It's like a fire hose, 24/7 of poison. Over 10 to 20 years, you have to add 100 plus more poison. That's obvious CEQA violation. Your ordinance allows data capacity. There is no the only preemption is significant gap in coverage, and there's no case law that allows data capacity. So why give the industry any gifts? We did a drive test. We went to 3 locations with a meter and a phone, and we found that there was no significant gap in coverage. We were able to make a phone call and a text. The ordinance uses the non-discretionary for the approval, and there is no public hearing for that. The problem is that because macro towers is discretionary and you get public hearing, but there's no case law. You did not have to put that in there, and you can be successfully argued that.
Ms. Bruce, if you just give us one more thought, maybe.
Okay.
We're out of time there.
Okay. So basically this is an unconstitutional wish list from the FCC and the wireless industry lobbyists that run the show, and this is being addressed in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gary Schwimmer. And then after Gary will be Mike King. Hello, sir.
Hi, good evening. My
evening.
name is Gary Schwimmer. I live
Will
in
you
Simi
pull
Valley.
that mic up so we can hear you better?
Sure thing.
Perfect.
Better?
Yeah.
My name is Gary Schwimmer, and I live in Simi Valley since 1987, so I've been a resident of Ventura County for that time, and made a goal to move to Ventura County after living 3 years in Germany. To the subject that I want to talk about, of course, is Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi, we know, it's part of everyday life. It's in our homes, it's in the schools, it's in businesses, and for the most part, people have heard that cellular and Wi-Fi can cause cancer, right? We take our phones, if you put it near your face too long, they warn you. There's even a warning from the phone companies, don't put it close to your face because you could get sick from the radiation. What most people don't know is that Wi-Fi radiation is the exact same type of radiation, but only at a more constant and higher frequency. So what we're worried about with 5G is the frequency it operates at, the 24 gigahertz to 90 gigahertz. Basically, you're on the edge of what the military uses to develop their own weapons using this type of technology, ultra-high frequencies. And I think you've all probably heard about the active denial system that has been built for many years, and it uses 95 gigahertz to make crowds disperse, to direct signals at a person. And what happens with ultra-high frequencies is your body, your skin, your pain receptors on your hands and your body, your sweat glands absorb these signals. And what it does is it causes a burning sensation. And right away makes you move away, makes you fall, and you try to get away from that signal. And that's when it's used at a high frequency, constant directed power. So using this new technology implemented around homes, when you're under it 24/7, 365 is a very dangerous thing. And we really need to evaluate what is the long-term problem of that constant thing being in our environment. So, as I mentioned, we have 5G. 5G works on millimeter waves. The problem that we've been told by the telecoms is because it's a shorter distance frequency, the way it's using the ultra-high frequencies, they have to set up a lot of cell towers. And they're looking at cell towers to be about every 200, 300 feet, basically every light pole and closer to our homes. Now, the signals don't go through buildings, so they won't go through homes, they go through glass, and they definitely are absorbed by trees, by the environment, and of course, humans. So the minute you're outside, you're going to be absorbing these signals. And we do that already with our 4G and such, but 5G is going to be a much higher and constant rate, which is going to be bad for our environment and us.
You're in the red zone, so let's...
Oh, I'm sorry. The last thing I wanted to do is the FCC states that it's committed to do its part to help ensure that the United States wins the global 5G race to benefit all Americans. No one can explain why there is a race, because our phones are not ready for 5G. As the only race that exists today is the race between the telecoms to gain a foothold in every city for who's going to have the power, the light poles. Okay? So if my time's up, then
Yep.
I'll quit here.
Thanks,
Thank
Mr.
you for the
Schwimmer.
time to speak.
Yeah. Next person who goes over gets 50 lashes with a wet noodle. Just kidding. Mike King.
What if you like wet noodles? Let's see. My name's Mike King, and I live in Thousand Oaks, and I've lived here most of my life, 40 years or so. I would bring it down, but you wouldn't believe it. So anyway, in October of 2017, Governor Brown vetoed SB 649, which was a state bill. And that bill was basically a bill that did exactly what the FCC is trying to do now, which is gain right-of-way in the cities and put them up without the city having much say in it. And one thing that caught the attention of many people in SB 649 was that the California firefighters had an exemption written into the bill where it said that they were not going to be able to install any of these small towers on top of stations or in the vicinity of stations. And the reason is because firefighters over the last 15 to 20 years have been actually experiencing health problems. And now they always talk about, oh, it's safe and things like that, but there's actual documented health outcomes from firefighters in several parts of California where it's been documented where it's actually affected them health-wise. So the takeaway from that is that if we exempt the firefighters in SB 649, by the way, that was vetoed by Governor Brown, why are we allowing this to go in our neighborhood? Now, I know that you guys don't have a say in that, but I'm just getting that out there. The second point is fiber optics is a much better way to go because that gives you the bandwidth that you need and without the health effects. And third point is please call your federal representative. I believe it's Miss Brownlee here. So I encourage everyone in the audience and everyone that watches this or sees this, call Congressman Brownlee right away and have her pressure the FCC. Next point is I think everyone should invest in this right here. It's called an EMF field measuring device, and you can go around your home and see what the levels of EMF are right now, and then if we do end up getting these small towers, and you can compare the levels before and after. And lastly, I hope that the City Council will revisit the ordinance, the fast track ordinance, and put something in there that says, okay, we don't want these towers, so close together. And I made it. No wet noodles.
Well done. Michael T. T is in timely, right? Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. That's T as in Tardif, Michael Tardif.
I just had T here. I would have said your last name. I apologize.
No worries. I want to say thank you, Mayor and City Council, staff members, and of course, the community. Our strength is in our unity, our common unity, or our community. I had the honor and privilege of growing up here in Thousand Oaks. Well, I came here in 1978. I lived here 40 years. And my parents live here. I have siblings here. My children were born and raised here. I love Thousand Oaks. I love this city. I love this city so much that I decided I was going to suit up, show up. I was willing to jump out of airplanes and helicopters in the United States Army. I'm a combat veteran. I represent other combat veterans that can't be here tonight. I direct 2 local, powerful veteran outreach programs. I am part of this community. I am part of this power here tonight. This is power versus force. Again, I'm grateful for this privilege. My brother David was also a commando. He was an airborne ranger, M60 machine gun, team-leading Halo jump master. So we take our responsibilities very seriously when it comes to guarding the honor of not only our four sisters, but our community, our country. And I think we're like echoing Mr. Bauman, who left. I wanted to say thank you. But we're counting on you now. We're counting on our representatives to represent and push back. What is the false sense of urgency here? 98% is covered by 4G, person to person. This is connecting things to things. 5G is a battlefield interrogation system. It penetrates and 3D maps everything on the battlefield. It penetrates concrete, it penetrates brick, and it identifies everything in there. Along with this is data collection. These are data collection units and facilities. They're going to collect our data and sell it, just like Facebook. There's very, very, very kind of deceptive, like a scent in the air of deception. The word that comes to mind is sinister, because the positives the negatives far outweigh at this point. The independent studies that have been done, the peer-reviewed studies that have been done, they're all overwhelming. Again, I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak to you. I'm grateful for the service of the other men and women in uniform that's standing guard right now for our liberties. I'm here voicing for them, and again, for Mr. Bauman. I wish he was here so I could say thank you to him as well. So we're counting on you to reciprocate. Thank you.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for your time. All right, Ellen Frank. And then after Ellen will be Paige Nielsen. If you'd like to come closer, Paige. Good evening.
Hi. Thank you for all of you for being here and giving us your real attention and time. And I really want to thank everybody here, all the citizens from Thousand Oaks. I've lived in California most of my life, and I've never liked it. I lived in beautiful areas. I lived in the Palisades. I lived in Topanga. I moved to Thousand Oaks about 14 years ago, and this is my home. And I love this community. These are people of honor and all different kinds of people that work together. And I appreciate that the people who fight for our country, I mean, that is stunning and amazing that they can do that. And that you people are here to represent us. And I appreciate that. So we're here to talk about 5G. First of all, no one is immune. You guys aren't. We'll all have to deal with this together if it happens. And right now, our rights are being chipped away. They are being taken away, and it's kind of like a frog in a pot. At first, it's just a little warm. The frog kind of goes, this feels good. And then it gets a little hotter. Oh, it's a little hotter, but I'm used to it. Then it gets hotter until that frog is boiling and dead. And that is truly what I believe is happening to our rights. And we have to stand up for ourselves. And you have been given right here tonight the legal tools and information that you need to know that you don't have to bend over and go, okay, just do it because we can't do anything. We have legal rights. You have legal rights. We can fight this. There's Northern California has it. At least it's not in the residential areas. I believe Calabasas is doing it. The mayor of Portland is saying no. Today, the Vatican has said no 5G. We don't even want it in Rome. This is serious. We have doctors and scientists. The majority of top doctors and scientists in the world have come out and said this is dangerous and perhaps catastrophic, not just to humans, to our environment, to our ability to grow food. I mean, this is very, very serious. And it is important that we stand up. If we don't start standing up for our rights, it's kind of like Europe in the 1930s, for example. Okay, we got to do it. The government tells us to do it. Okay, we'll go along, and look what happens. You get a dictatorship. This is not something that is a game or something that's light. This is dead serious, and I use the word dead specifically. I wanted to bring up the Federal Disabilities Act. I believe that people who have pacemakers and other implanted wireless devices, life will be in danger with this 5G. And 5G literally works with our pores, and it turns our pores into little antennas and makes us feel like we're on fire. And as someone mentioned earlier, it is a weapon. That is a fact. We would never have a respite from it.
Ms. Frank, you're in the red zone, so if you wrap it up.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you all. And I hope that we stay TO strong. We have shown the world we are TO strong, and we can fight this in a responsible, non-hysterical, systematic way. So I hope that you guys are really taking this serious, because we're gonna fight it one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Paige Nielsen, hello. After Paige will be Nicholas Doherty.
And I gave you copies of 9 pictures showing the fire department and, okay. The last few days, Weston Elementary School in Ripon, California just shut down a cell tower on their school campus after 4 students and some teachers were diagnosed with cancer. Thousand Oaks will soon be getting between 4,000 and 6,000 5G cell sites from all different wireless carriers. There's no scientific research or data that proves it's safe. It's just the telecom industry and the FCC saying it's safe, and they aren't using medical health epidemiologists who do know about this. Representatives from the wireless companies have been going into our cities across the United States, telling city boards that they have the right to install cell towers anywhere they decide, and as many as they want, threatening legal litigation if the city denies their application, referencing they would violate the Telecommunications Act of 1996. Don't believe their hype. As an individual, a civic association, or a local government, you have rights. When wireless companies file local applications seeking to install cell towers or cell antennas, local governments remain vested with both the power and the obligation to enact and enforce local zoning laws in such a manner as to protect their citizens. That power encompasses the ability to enact and enforce all ordinances rationally related to protecting their citizens and their communities from virtually any potential adverse health impact of RF emissions, which would emanate from such towers or antennas. Do as the LA Fire Department Union did and oppose towers where they live, eat, work, sleep. We can install fiber optic cable in residential areas, which is far superior and proven to be faster and more reliable. Most importantly, our children who have thinner skulls, thinner brains, thinner bones, they are going to be having deeper penetration from this 5G microwave radiation going into their cells, causing more problems at school, causing heart cancer, brain cancer. And I have a friend in Canada who her grandchildren are so sick from the Wi-Fi radiation in the schools. She started a nonprofit, parentsforsaferschools.org, and their kids cannot be a part of society. They had to move out to the country. They have to have homeschooling. So I personally know my children respond with migraines from this. They come home from school, they throw up. I see it personally, and I have friends that also have it, but nobody's talking about it. And I just know the 5G is going to make us not be able to go to school. How can we go to work? We're all going to be sick, and we're not going to know why, because there's no scientists saying that from the SEC that it's safe. But we know, because there's multi-million-dollar studies that say that it isn't safe by all the scientists and doctors that have put a moratorium saying stop this 5G in our houses, everywhere around, even up in the sky in the satellite with Arthur Firstenberg. Elon Musk is launching 20,000 of these up and above our atmosphere to beam down rays. So if we're going to have them above us, we're going to have them next to us, we're going to have Wi-Fi in our houses, homes, cell phones, it's all going to go over to 5G. As our beekeeper is going to say, we're cooking humanity, and our bees are the first to show, which is very sad. So we won't have food, and I don't know how we're all going to do this, but we're going to be praying. So bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you for the pamphlet, Ms. Nielsen. Our next speaker is Nicholas Doherty, and then after Nicholas will be Susan Weniger. Did I say that right? Okay. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Nick Doherty. I'm a resident of Newbury Park. I'm an ex-military officer. I've got a background in math and science, including aerospace engineering and military radar systems. I've also worked as a director for a health information company focused on cancer research, and so I've had to get smart on this issue of 5G really quickly as well. Here's what we know. EMF exposure has increased about 1 quintillion times in the last 100 years. If you don't know what a quintillion is, It's one with 18 zeros on the end. That's a billion. That's the increase in EMF radiation that we're all exposed to as compared to our grandparents and great-grandparents 100 years ago. It's unprecedented, the amount of radiation that we're already exposed to on a daily basis. And we're talking about, as you've heard over and over again tonight, it's getting worse. So I asked myself, who's pushing the agenda? And like others have said, why the false sense of urgency? The more I dig, the more questionable it becomes, at least for me. For the past 25 years, the telecommunications industry seems to have led an orchestrated PR campaign aimed at misleading consumers, misleading journalists, and misleading policymakers about the science of cell phone radiation. Industry is lobbying government, they're funding their own studies, and they're telling them it's safe, whereas the broader independent scientific community disagrees. The fact remains that installing 5G antennas on thousands of utility poles, as I'm driving here, I'm seeing all the light poles and all the telephone poles, and I'm imagining at every single one of those a little tower beaming at me. It's an unprecedented, like I mentioned, exposure to wireless that we've never seen before with unknown consequences to public health. Wi-Fi in our homes, we can choose to opt out of. We can choose to not put Wi-Fi in our homes. But there's no way to opt out of this unless we leave this community. Once it's installed, we don't have a chance to say no. My kids don't have a chance to opt out. My grandparents won't have a chance to opt out. And so flooding our community with microwave radiation known to cause harm to humans, in my opinion, is a violation of basic human rights. Tyranny is when a government controls its citizens with fear and oppression, and I've heard we here at the local level don't have any power to fight back against this federal bureaucracy raining down on us. And I say that any government agency that prioritizes the interests of industry over the health and safety of its citizens borders on tyranny. Benjamin Franklin said it's the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority, and today I feel we need to question this shameful ruling from the FCC. Question the authority to exercise such power over the citizens to put them directly into harm's way, and question whether we're going to lay down and accept it or stand up and challenge this. Other cities are already pushing back, as we've heard. In Marin County, for example, there's 3 separate cities that have already passed ordinances to thwart 5G expansion over health concerns. So Marin County, some of the smartest minds in technology today are pushing back, and they're saying, no, not in my community. So we have an opportunity here to push back. I thank you for your time. And last thing I want to say is I'm a new resident of Newbury Park. My family and I just moved here at the beginning of January. We're renting, and we're looking to buy a home. But my wife and I spoke today, and if these towers go up, we will not be buying a home. We'll leave, and we'll find someplace else. So thank you very much.
Thanks for your service. Susan, you're up next. There's 2 S's, so I was thinking Suzanne, but did I get it right with Susan? Yeah? Never mind. I'm just mumbling. Next will be Warren Wolf. Hello.
Hello. I'm Susan Weininger. I live in the Lang Ranch part of Thousand Oaks, and we've lived here for about 23 years. As you heard a little bit about, last week in Brussels, the plan to provide 5G wireless transmitters was halted with the environmental minister, Céline Fromalt, saying, and this is a quote, "The people of Brussels are not guinea pigs whose health I can sell at a profit. We cannot leave anything to doubt." We are aware that the FCC is not the law of the land there, but we hope to hear language as strong as this locally, or something resembling it, and we're just not hearing it yet. You may be tired or frustrated with hearing us all speak about the 5G antenna transmitters again and again, and we'll keep doing it, but we need to because it's very important. Some city councils in California are not as afraid of lawsuits and are fighting harder for their citizens than we are seeing here in Thousand Oaks. There's a light pole 30 feet from my house. That pole will most likely be the first place on my street to have a 5G transmitter installed. It will be 15 feet from my neighbor's kid's bedroom. It will be 30 feet from my daughter's bedroom. And it will be transmitting 24 hours a day, very strong signals. This can't be a good thing. I am not only speaking health-wise, but my property value will be diminished. When I asked an acquaintance who is a prominent realtor in this area if homes near current cellular transmitters, even hundreds of feet from antennas, had a harder time being sold, she said unquestionably. When I asked her if she would speak here at a Thousand Oaks City Council meeting, she said, "Are you kidding? I will be fired." The city's advisors are protecting the city's interests, which may be in opposition, in this case, to your residents' interests. But I hope that will not dissuade you from working individually and as a council to institute measures to protect your citizens and your own families. I'm asking 3 additional things of all of you. Please designate money toward the League of Cities lawsuit, which you're aware of, against the FCC. I know you had said you were going to talk about it. I don't know whether you've talked about it yet. Please give them money. Please urge Julia Brownlee, just like we're doing, to overrule the FCC regulations, which Congress does have the power to do. And finally, please explore every conceivable alternative to the 5G to protect all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. And we never tire of thoughtful community involvement from the gallery to come and share. You're always welcome. We never tire of that. So thank you. Folks, truly, thank you for coming out tonight. Warren Wolf, you're next. And after that will be Vadim Manzos. Vadim, did I get your last name right? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Hi, thank you for having me. And my family and I, we've lived here almost 4 years in Thousand Oaks. And I wanted to share something a little different about 5G. In fact, I wanted to share a parallel case study that could signal what happens in Thousand Oaks and other communities. It's one of many examples where federal regulators got it wrong. Last August, a U.S. jury awarded Dwayne Johnson $289 million in damages, agreeing that Monsanto's Roundup weed killer was a contributing cause of his cancer. In March, another U.S. jury awarded Edwin Hardman $80 million in damages, agreeing that Roundup was a substantial factor in causing his cancer. During the trial, attorneys demonstrated Monsanto placed an unsafe product on the market, manipulated science, manipulated public opinion, and had consistently misled people into believing Roundup is safe. They additionally claimed Monsanto had bullied researchers to suppress negative studies about the weed killer. Part of the lawsuit suggested that despite the World Health Organization declaring in 2015 that glyphosate, which is the main active ingredient in Roundup, was a probable carcinogen, Monsanto ghostwrote part of the EPA's conclusion that glyphosate was safe, demonstrating how corporations have great sway over the federal agencies. Just last month, Los Angeles County issued a moratorium banning the use of Roundup in public areas. Similar to the case of Monsanto's Roundup, there is a lot of independent peer-reviewed research concluding that radio and microwave radiation is damaging to the human body, contributing to serious health issues like cancer. This city council has been provided much documentation and multiple links to independent peer-reviewed research demonstrating the dangers of putting 5G wireless cell sites throughout the community in close proximity to residents' homes. It would be terrible to see a Thousand Oaks family's child develop cancer, and health experts conclude that the microwave radiation from a 5G cell site installed on the light pole located outside her home was a contributing factor. During the last city council meeting, Mayor McCoy is recorded in the video transcript saying, quote, that he and all of the board are getting a quick education on this, and for a lot of us, this is new to us, and so folks can testify to the fact that I met with them this week wanting to get a grasp on it. I hope the City Council does its due diligence and pass a new aesthetic ordinance that protects the community. The evidence is mounting against the proliferation of 5G and similar technologies in close proximity to people. This city could be open to multi-million-dollar lawsuits in the future if it doesn't consider all the research and do everything it can to protect the community. And the last thing I would like to do is just point out that in the Acorn article from March 14th, the actual number of sites from quoted 4,000 to 5,000 was only half. Based on the figures in that article, The total number of sites would be 9,600, which is a 6,757% increase from the current total.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Vadim, you're next.
Good evening, City Council.
How's the Thousand Oaks beekeeper doing?
Working hard as bees. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Good evening, City Council members. I wish I was a commercial break for you, but the
It's
same
okay.
issue. Yeah, it's very important. And I fell in love with City of Thousand Oaks 17 years ago when we moved with a family of 6 children and wife from Woodland Hills and originally from Ukraine, as many of you know. Unfortunately, I didn't fight for this country, because at that time I was a Soviet Union resident, and I fought for Soviet Union in Afghan war. But it doesn't make me less patriot, as some folks who spoke before, and we are not fighting with AR-15. We just do our talk and our best to share our thoughts. And I'd like to read quickly so to save you a bunch of time.
Okay.
I'm here tonight to ask you to please place the urgency ordinance on the agenda for our next meeting. I know you feel pressure to do something for the residents of Thousand Oaks, and I'm so thankful that you are here tonight to listen to what we have to say. I'm here to give you courage and let you know that there are other cities that have passed urgency ordinances that have still maintained the local control. I know that you are part of the League of the City lawsuit that is taking place in the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah.
I know we are hoping that, in fact, we will win against the FCC. But because this takes up to 1.5 years to settle, we have to have other measures in order to make sure that you will still maintain your control. I would urge you to get a second opinion. I know it costs the city of money, but it would be well worth of our while to amend the current ordinance. The cost to the city will be nothing if one of the city's cell towers catches a light, and in comparison, of course, and the city is sued for the fire. There are other instances where the city will be held liable and there will be lawsuits against it. So it's vital that we have a sharp, urgent ordinance that we will ensure the city is protected. I know the original ordinance constantly refers to the health, safety, and well-being of the residents. We can make this happen by issuing an aesthetic ordinance that would ensure the cell towers are at least 2,000 feet apart and 2,000 feet away from residential areas. That way, we do not lose the charm of beautiful Thousand Oaks, and you do not lose local control. Thank you for your patience tonight, and we hope that this current ordinance will be amended to your favor. We voted you in, and we trust you more than the telecommunications companies. Please keep your control. Do not hand it over to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vadim. Joshua Perigo? Did I say that right? And then after Joshua will be Ryan Shepard. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks. Thank you, City Council members. I've been a resident of Newbury Park since 2011, but I represent my in-laws who have been here for over 3 decades. I represent my children. I represent my children's children over this 5G issue. And I also represent the countless number of people, the thousands of people in this community that cannot be here for whatever reason. And as I sat up in the top there and watched the folks below me look up information on 5G on their cell phones using LTE nonetheless, not 5G, and able to get answers, I actually was struggling for what to say. My wife sent me here, and my wife, who works harder than I do because she stays at home with our 3 kids, is part of a Facebook group called Moms of Conejo Valley. And I know that they have been drumming up interest to be here to talk out and speak out against 5G. But more importantly, rather than just speaking out against 5G, they've done the research.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got in your corner is people who are at home to have time to do the research that's necessary to give us a better footing to stand on. She actually gave me something to read, and I will read part of that. And the thing that she sent me to read has to do with the 10th Amendment, how that protects us against the government overstepping their bounds. The other thing that she gave me to read, specifically concerning the telecom companies, is in 2005, there was a decision in the Metro PCS versus San Francisco court case in the Ninth Circuit Court that defined the need for a wireless carrier to prove that a significant gap in coverage actually exists, and then directs the carrier to use the least intrusive means possible to close any significant gap in coverage. Herein lies one of the solutions that we could possibly use to fight back against the FCC. I know that you guys all have an agenda every time we have one of these. We have an agenda, things that get put on the agenda to talk about and discuss, and when I walked in tonight, I was told that the issue of 5G was not on the agenda, it was part of public comments. And I've not been part of a public hearing like this before, so forgive me if I'm overstepping my bounds or doing something that's against what you guys want. But I would ask everybody in this audience, if you're here for 5G, if you're here to speak out against the atrocities that could be coming our way, I would ask you to stand up. When I sat down, I counted over 70 people in this room, all here for public comments. And as you can see, the representation behind me, almost all of them were here because of this issue. This is not going away. Matter of fact, it's gaining momentum. And I can promise you that those of us in here in this room that are passionate about it, we're going to fill this room each and every city council meeting. So it needs to be on the agenda. And what I really appreciate, the comments that you started off with, Mayor, was how we are working together on this. We don't want this to be, and I can guarantee you, speaking for everybody in this room, we don't want this to be us against you. We want to work together on this. So what we would ask you to do is protect us. We don't want to be 20 years down the road and have to have an Aaron Brockovich come in and fight for our rights and pay us back for the things we've gone through.
Here a little bit.
I know I'm in the red, but all I'm asking you to do is help us be organized to fight back against this. Help us help you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I'd like Michael's comments, common unity, community. That was a great line. That was awesome. I lost track here. Ryan Shepard. And then after Ryan will be Lorena Sarvanatari. Did I say that right? Okay. If you'll get ready, you'll be next. Good
How are
evening.
you, ladies and gentlemen, tonight?
We're doing all right.
Good deal. I don't do this often, so I'd just like to start by saying, just piggybacking on what the gentleman before me just said. We are supposed to be friends. At least we like to think that we are friends and we are working together. But literally, I've been to 2 of these meetings now, and I have not seen that. I haven't seen the concern in any panel's faces at all. I hear a lot of everyone's bringing mounds and mounds of evidence to you. And what I'm thinking is, if this is your jobs to work hand in hand with the officials that are coming in and representing the FCC or the telecommunications industry, how is it that we are telling you all of this information, and how have none of you guys know this already? This is your field. This is what you're supposed to do, is to protect us. I'm Ryan Shepard. Let me start there. Sorry. I live in Simi Valley. I appreciate the time to talk. And I'm not going to talk about complete concern, worry, and risk. I'm talking only about the substantial evidence of proven harms of 4G and 5G proximity, microwave radiation antennas, what the industry calls smart cells. If you ask anybody in this whole area, like the gentleman said, overwhelmingly, if you want a cell tower in front of your house, the answer is overwhelmingly no, from Calabasas to Thousand Oaks to everywhere and anywhere, pretty much. I just can't understand, with the amount of evidence that has been presented to all the panels in all the cities, how this is still a discussion and how we still have this feeling that we are working against each other or still trying to convince you. I mean, you guys are in the same community as us. How are we trying to convince you? You guys should know this already. Before I begin, I guess it only leads down to motivations. I think it's a legitimate and reasonable question that I'd like to ask on behalf of the community. If there's anyone in the council that has any financial interest in wireless stock or income status from any wireless companies, and if they do, I ask that you recuse yourselves. I'll point to the mayor in Petaluma who had stock and investments in both AT&T and Verizon, and therefore did recuse himself. In addition, in regards to Jonathan Kramer, your radio frequency legal consultant, I believe there is a conflict of interest, but it is more subtle than having ties to the telecom industry. His firm's income is almost entirely dependent on contracts with the government entities. If he were to come out and say that the city has the option of regulating the location of small cells, that we actually did have a chance in this fight, I think that it would come down on his law firm and result in lawsuits, and there would probably be some blame on his part too, result in loss of business as well. So by taking the easy way out and telling us that there's nothing that can be done, he keeps himself out of hot water, protects his future revenue stream, investments and whatnot. And I'm wondering if there's any of that going on behind the scenes as well. Thank you.
Well, if it's any help, I don't own any stock in anything.
Thank you.
All right, Ryan. Lorena, you're up next. Next will be Mandy Jacob. Good evening.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am actually a resident of the city of Camarillo, and I come to Thousand Oaks quite a while. You know, my relatives live here. I, like everyone, has been speaking about how bad is 5G. I work as an aide for one of the schools in the Ventura County, and I know that these children now, they are being taught through a Chromebook. Can you imagine what's that going to happen to them, to their health, when they're going to be 8 hours or 6 hours there on the school, constantly in touch with that? And the reason I'm here too is because this 5G is, you know, an overreach of our federal government. And just let me read this. Thousand Oaks should not have passed any urgency ordinances that are consistent with the FCC 18123 because on March 7, the joint opposition of hundreds of cities filed a motion to oppose the FCC rules. Best and Krieger, the lead law firm for the joint opposition, advised its city on January 15. In the Ninth Circuit, motion of Stacy of FCC 18123 is granted relief may be possible. The orders may eventually be overturned. We believe there are substantial questions as to whether the FCC small cell order is valid or lawful. We are not recommending that you incorporate the FCC rules into a local law. If you do so, then you will be bound by your own requirements, even if FCC order is vacated. Thousand Oaks amendments of the urgency ordinances that roll out the red carpet for wireless carriers to invade our neighborhoods. Thousand Oaks can instead defend its rights to local rule by invoking the anti-commandeering doctrine, which says that the federal government cannot force states to act as federal subdivision of offices to comply with federal programs. Hundreds of cities have banded together to sue the FCC over FCC 18123. The September 2018 small cell deployment rules on this very principle. In Murphy v. NCAA in 2018, Justice Alito wrote, a more direct affront to state sovereignty is not easy to imagine. He continued, the anti-commandeering doctrine may sound arcane, but it is simply the expression of a fundamental structural decision incorporated into the Constitution. The decision to withhold from Congress the power to issue orders directly to the state. Consciously absent from the list of powers given to Congress is a power to issue direct orders to the government of the states. The anti-commandeering doctrine simply represents the recognition of this limit on congressional authority. Now, in 2018 case, there were 4 other Supreme Court cases. I am citing are detailed in the exhibit entered into the Simi Valley public record for item 8A on the March 25, 2019
Lorena,
agenda item.
You're out of time. If you'd like, you can give us a copy of that if you'd want us to read it in its entirety.
Oh, I just have the list of the cases.
We're all out of time, and
okay, thank you.
I'll let you go a little bit longer anyway. So, but
No,
thank you, and
thank
please, if you copy us on it, we'll read it.
Yes.
Thank you, Mandy Jacob.
Hi, City Council. Thank you so much for letting me speak tonight. I'm coming at this from a totally different point of view. My background is in investment banking, and I'm by no means a lawyer, but I did graduate magna cum laude from the top 3 universities in the UK. So just to tell you, I have an LLM, so I'm not a lawyer, but what I did was I took the city ordinance, and then I looked at all the different other ordinances that were passed in California after January, and looked at the potential amendments. And so my logic here is just to look at how Thousand Oaks can actually tie up a stronger ordinance and give yourselves the local control while still appeasing the FCC. So if you bear with me, I had lots of fun reading this a few times, but what I want to do is just give you a verbal matrix of how this would go about. And I just found out now about Calabasas, so I'll have to add that to the matrix. And if you're interested, there obviously was a great amount of input from the local community. It wasn't just myself. I did want to say, really, the whole, if I had to characterize what we're looking at here, it's the legislative intent. And unfortunately, you had one consultant who was telling you that the sky was falling. So I understand. I mean, I saw in the last agenda, you weren't even requested to read the ordinance. You were only requested to read the title. So, of course, you took the residents' health, as they say in this ordinance, health, safety, and welfare into account, and try to protect us. But when you read this ordinance, I can't tell you how many times it says words like the city strongly encourages but does not require. Wording like that needs to be changed. It needs to be, and again, Tracy, I'd love your attention on this kind of thing, because that's where you're an expert and I'm not. But if we can change the lingo to give you guys the control again to say we require this, not we strongly encourage. So there are lots of issues here. I mean, the most important really is to look at the 3 laws that we're under now. It's the 1996 Telecommunications Act, the 2012, thank you, I'm getting nods, so okay, we're moving forward in this.
And if she's typing, she is listening. She is a very amazing multitasker, and she's probably taking notes on what you're saying. So
great. I mean, you don't need to take notes from me. You guys know this, but the thing is, we want to just tie this up with the verbiage. And there was a lot of things like the gap of coverage. Again, someone mentioned Metro PCS versus San Francisco. Again, the Verizon CEO who's told us the gap in coverage is 2,000 feet. We can put that in. Another thing that wasn't even addressed in the ordinance is to say things like these towers, if they're coming up, need to be measured and made sure that they're only 5G, the CPMRs that are being used, and not being used as 4G, because as we've seen in Sonoma County, 5G's fallen apart, and we don't want them coming in and going, okay, it's fallen apart, but we're going to use these 10,000 cells for 4G. So that's one of the other things. We've got to try and make ourselves not attractive to the telecoms, put ourselves at the bottom of the list in the cities of California. And once I look at the other ordinance, maybe I can hand it in to you guys for bedtime reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Mandy, if you'll let Ryan know, we met today, and I did talk with you, and so I have been spending time doing this. Just so you know. All right. Next speaker is Robert. Well, I lost the thing here, and I can't see that. DeSanto? Robert DeSanto? Oh, I know Robert. And then Samuel Tardif. I think you're related to Michael, because I got the names. You're sitting next to each other, and they're pretty sharp. I mean, what can I tell you? And you're going to back cleanup, so get ready, Samuel. Good evening, Robert.
Good evening. How are you, Mayor?
I'm well, thank you.
I jotted a few notes down to keep me on track because I can just talk on and on. I've been following the subject for about 8 years. Unscrambling the 5G matrix. So first of all, thank you, each of you, for listening to me and, more importantly, hearing what I have to say. Mayor, first of all, I know you, being a graduate of the Harvard of the San Joaquin Valley, will appreciate the fact, and being a history major as well, you probably know this by heart, but the former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill said, he once observed that the farther back you look, the farther forward you're likely to see. Councilwoman Bilda La Pena, am I close?
You got it.
Thank you. As a former Emmy-winning a news writer and reporter, I know you know the importance of getting at the crux of the matter and having to dig to find the truth in the story. Councilman Adams, as a managing director of the investments for Wells Fargo, I know you know the importance of doing your due diligence. Councilman Engler, as a former firefighter, Thank you for your service there and putting your life on the line for the citizens. I know you know the importance of not only safety, but also for fire prevention even before the fact. And Councilman Jones is a political professor. I know you certainly understand the myriad of restrictions the articles of government have in order to put in place to restrain the federal government. As the great communicator once said, Ronald Reagan, government is not the answer to the problem, government is the problem. And as the Declaration of Independence has said, it's the concern of the sovereign. I have a clogged, watery tear duct. You're not making me cry yet, so if I wipe my eye, don't worry. It's the consent of the sovereign, and in our constitutional republic, we the people are the sovereign. I know you understand that. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer, one of my favorites, had a great quote. He said, silence in the face of evil is itself evil. And once the infrastructure is installed, understand it can't be uninstalled. Once it's done, it's done. It must be stopped before it's installed. And as you come to your city's decision, I pray, honestly pray, that you ponder the words you've heard from some of these incredible speakers that have come from a myriad of like circumstances and backgrounds, speaking their hearts. This is only the last time also on the same subject I've come out ever in my life to speak on the subject, because I'm passionate about it and I know the critical importance of it. And as someone once said here, that it's going to affect you, your spouses, your families, your children, your grandchildren as well. So I can go on and on about the health. I'm going to leave that aside because some people have spoken on it, but I guarantee you there's people that you can look up online, and I've looked at, not only through video, but through written materials, that have more degrees than the thermometer, that are scientists, that are doctors, that are brain surgeons, that are heart specialists, that warn, that are not on the payroll, by the way, of the FCC. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it, the FCC is actually an independent body of the federal government, like the federal, the Fed. That they're independent. They're not actually part of that body. They can't do what they're doing, but everyone's falling in line and complying, and it's ridiculous.
You're in the red, so give it a close here.
I will. So I just want you to remember that the. Let me wrap it up this way. I heard a war veteran, a Vietnam hero that gave up an eye, a leg, and an arm in the Vietnam War. I heard him speak in the 80s. His name is Cleve McClary from South Carolina. And I heard him speak. He was in his full Marine uniform, and he said, in a world of give and take, there are not enough people willing to give what it takes. I hope each and every one of you is willing to do that. Thank you, and good night.
Thanks, Robert. All right, Samuel, you're up. Good evening.
Good evening, beautiful people of Thousand Oaks. I love every single person here unconditionally. This is my community. This is my tribe. We need to work together on this. I consider you all friends, even though none of us have met. To the people here, thank you all for coming out. This is very serious. We need to really buckle down on this here. Just curious, is there anybody here that wants one of these towers in their front yard? Show of hands. Okay, cool. Just want to confirm that. To the council, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse. This affects you guys just as much as it affects us. I just want to speak from the heart. I had a bunch of stuff that I want to say, but in my opinion, my humble opinion, this is a crime against humanity. This is against human rights. The government should not be able to conduct untested experiments upon the unsuspecting population. There's really not a lot of room to debate that. I think that's pretty much open and shut case. Now I'm going to use this opportunity to address the people who are watching this on YouTube. Anybody across the world just waking up to this 5G phenomena, please do your research. Please suspend your disbelief. I understand it's healthy to be skeptic, especially with so many crazy conspiracy theories nowadays. This is not a theory. These are facts. We need to wake up. And to the FCC, we're coming for you. We're not going down without a fight. So I will be here at every meeting. I'm going to do what I can. And I'm really going to trust in you guys that you're going to do everything you can. I mean, it's not that hard to become convinced this is bad. We have a million other better options. It's pretty black and white. Please and thank you, council. Help us, help each other, help yourselves. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Samuel. Well, folks, thank you so much for coming out tonight to share. Our city manager will have some thoughts on all this, and I really appreciate your time, and I thought all of you did such a great job, so thank you. Mr. Powers?
Thanks so much, Mayor McCoy, and thanks for everyone coming out this evening and so respectfully sharing your thoughts and your perspectives. I want to remind our speakers and all residents of Thousand Oaks that along with every city in the United States, we're simply responding to action by the federal government here. We know you're frustrated, and we are as well. We continue to be. We recognize that this is an emotional issue for many people, and that this is the closest form of government for you to have access to. That's the reason most of us work in this line of government, because it's the closest to the people. This is not a city initiative, not a city priority, and we have no interest in seeing a proliferation of cell towers in our communities, period. And I can say that unequivocally from the people here on this dais. Our city does have a responsibility to our residents to ensure that we enact the greatest protections possible within the confines of federal law. And that's the only action that the council's taken in this regard to small cells. One very important thing that I think I just want everyone, if you leave here with one thing tonight that you understand, it is that this city council took action on the ordinance. This just didn't come out of nowhere. This was thrust upon us in January, and this council took action on an ordinance. They didn't have to do that. The law binds every city in America. And so there are cities today that have not taken an urgency ordinance like ours, and their residents are not afforded the same limited protections that ours are now because of this urgency ordinance. So from that perspective, they have done their very level best, given the confines of this law, to put some protections, to try to steer these out of residential areas, to try to do things to dissuade the proliferation of these across our community. So there are cities across Ventura County over the next month that are going to be taking up their urgency ordinances as they're beginning to understand the potential perils facing them if they don't. Just commenting on several things that I heard tonight. One speaker mentions SB 649. We fought really hard against that. That was the governor. The governor ended up vetoing that. That was the state-based version of this same thing. We were actually testifying against that. We were one of the most vocal cities fighting it. And as a somewhat direct result of that, the telecommunications companies, they left California and they went to the FCC. And they went to the FCC to try to effectuate the changes on a national level. And they were successful in doing that. One speaker suggested that the law may get overturned, and we certainly hope that that is the case. And we encourage residents to lobby your federal legislators to do just that. Until then, cities don't have a choice, a fiscally responsible choice, but to abide by the federal law. And yes, there are cities that have done a variety of things in a variety of time frames, and we are very much aware of those, and our city attorney is tracking those with regularity. There was discussion of fighting this issue. We are actively involved through our participation in the League of California Cities in a lawsuit in the Ninth Circuit regarding an aspect of this law. We're going to continue to actively fight for local control on all issues, not just this. Residents, everyone here tonight, you're passionate, and I've got to encourage you to ensure that your collective voices are heard on a national level, not just here in these chambers. I know that feels like a Herculean task, but this is something that affects every city in America. I need you to channel that passion into the right place. You're welcome always to do it here, but the change has to come from the federal level. We're tracking the legal landscape on a daily basis. Just give you one example of how this is going. There were a number of cities that asked the court to delay the FCC's rules while litigation is pending. That request was denied by the courts. So it's still in place. The next FCC meeting is April the 12th at 10:30 a.m. and they take electronic comments. They're taking up an issue. If you go look at their agenda right now, they have an issue on handing out 5G regulations on that agenda for April the 12th. If you haven't already checked it out, we tried to put some information up, factual information on our FAQs page, toaks.org/wireless. We're going to continue to update that as this landscape continues to evolve. And that's it for my update.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. And folks, no, it's not on. We'll bring it up we addressed it. We'll bring it up at a later date. You're welcome to come on public comments. I appreciate that. We've sat and listened. So, folks.
Just briefly, when we're challenging the FCC rules, the FCC, I'm sure everyone here, because you guys have been doing your homework, and I appreciate that. I can also promise you that we as city staff are also doing our homework. I think just even in the last week, I've probably read over 1,000 pages of documents on 5G and wireless ordinances. And I have staff that has been working for months on this as well. When you look at what the FCC's relationship is with the Federal Telecommunications Act, the Federal Telecommunications Act, which was adopted in 1996, was adopted by the federal legislators, and they relied on the Interstate Commerce Clause to basically say that every city, every county, and every state has to allow telecommunications facilities in their jurisdiction. And although they have limited authority to regulate these facilities, cities and counties and states cannot do anything that either prevents or has the effect of preventing those telecommunication facilities from being implemented. What the FCC was tasked to do was to draft rules to ensure the implementation of the 1996 Federal Telecommunications Act. The lawsuit that is pending right now, that is before the Ninth Circuit, there's, I think, 4 of them, challenges the FCC rules on one aspect, and that is the basis of the FCC requiring cities to allow the use of its public right-of-way and limits the amount of compensation that can be charged. That's what the lawsuit is about. The lawsuit is not about whether or not 5G should be implemented in the cities. So I hope everyone has actually read the lawsuits, but that's what the challenge is right now before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal right now.
All right.
Okay.
And if you'd like to come back next week, we'd love to hear from you, and we'll continue to educate ourselves on this. And thank you for your participation this evening. Brings us to item number 7, the consent calendar. Do we have a motion to approve? Oh, did you want to speak? Go ahead. Councilmember Bill de la Peña.
Thank you, Mayor McCoy. I wanted to pull item 7L.
Item 7?
L.
L.
And with that, I can move to approve the remainder of the calendar.
Madam Clerk.
The motion carries 5-0.
Yes, 7L.
7L.
Yeah. The only reason I'm requested to pull item 7L is because of a letter that we received in a supplemental packet from one of the other contenders for the cannabis license in the city. And I wanted to acknowledge that the letter from Leaf Dispensary was received, and the letter is asking again to consider issuing a second medical cannabis dispensary license. And I know we went over this, but not sure if anything else can be added to that, either from our city manager's perspective or city attorney.
I can let Tracy speak to it, but I think it's fair to state that the issue that's before you with this is not in relation to that item. And as we talked about before, and I'll let Tracy speak to the significance of this particular item, but we'll be back before you in May regarding the changes to our ordinance, but we'll be back before you, we believe, right after council recess in regards to an update on status, unless something changes in the meantime with our operator.
That's pretty much what I was going to discuss is based on the last city council meeting that we discussed the medical marijuana facilities. Tonight's agenda is only for deliveries, but with respect to having a second operator, we indicated that we would come back to council with discussions on that and a testing facility in the fall.
Thank you so much. And then with that, I move to approve item 7L.
Madam Clerk?
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Councilmember Bill de la Pena, for keeping up on that. That brings us now to item number 8, public hearings. We have none. Department reports, we have none. So, I'm sorry? No. So item number 10, study session. And that will be done by Jamie Boscarino, Finance Director, Brent Cicada, Budget Officer. Take over.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor McCoy, City Council members. Tonight we're here to hold a study session on the proposed fiscal years 2019-2021 CIP budget. I'm joined by Brent Cicada, Budget Officer, and Cliff Finley, Deputy Public Works Director, as well as staff from other departments. The purpose of tonight's CIP budget study session is to provide an overview of the proposed 2-year budget and the 5-year CIP plan, review funding sources, highlight various projects, and provide an opportunity for both City Council discussion and public comments on the proposed CIP budget. Tonight is the second study session of the biennial budget process. The first study session was in February with review of the user fees manual, and the last study session will be in May with review of the operating budget. A public hearing on user fees is scheduled for the next meeting on April 23rd, and the operating and CIP budgets public hearing for June 11th. The CIP budget, just like the operating budget, is a 2-year budget. However, it's a little different in the operating budget in that it also includes a 5-year CIP plan. The proposed CIP budget for fiscal years 2019 through 2021 includes 132 projects for a total budget over the next 2 years of $97.1 million. The preparation of the CIP budget is a lengthy planning process that actually kicked off all the way back in October of last year with the Public Works Department. Staff began developing and planning for needed CIP projects between November and March. This included a comprehensive evaluation of needs, City Council priorities, and nice-to-haves. Once departments prepared their initial draft list of proposed projects, they worked closely in conjunction with the Finance Department on the fund balance analysis, ensuring that the proposed CIP budget is financially feasible. The proposed CIP budget was taken to the Capital Facilities Committee on April 1st for review and to Planning Commission last night for consistency with the city's general plan. Before we get into the proposed CIP budget, I want to go over a little bit of the background on the CIP budget. As I previously mentioned, the CIP budget is different than the operating budget in that it offers a 5-year CIP plan. This is a strategic way to focus more on the long-term requirements and proactively plan now for any potential funding challenges in the future. There are many CIP projects that can take more than 2 years to complete, so having a 5-year plan also helps for staffing planning. Projects can be multi-funded. A sidewalk project, for example, may come from a combination of grant funding, gas tax funding, developer fee funding. The general fund funds mainly facilities projects, including theaters, library, and stormwater, and does so through the use of capital reserves. Projects are not funded with ongoing operating revenues, only with reserves that are specifically set aside for capital projects. The proposed CIP budget manual is broken up into 3 main sections. The summary section, which includes the 5-year summary by project category, by fund, and the revenue summary. The summary section also includes the deferred requirements summary. This highlights past maintenance and improvements that were deferred, as well as if any deferral of maintenance is included in the proposed CIP budget. The next section is the project by category section. And this includes categories like facilities, landscape, streetscape, library, open space, stormwater, streets, transportation, traffic, undergrounding, wastewater, and water projects. And the final section is the projects by fund section. This includes a page for each fund, a listing of the projects proposed to be budgeted from the fund. The fund summary includes the beginning capital reserve amount available for spending, the amount to be carried over from the existing projects in this current year budget, any required reserves, anticipated capital revenues that we anticipate to receive over the next 5 years, and thus the ending balance in the fund after taking into consideration all of the proposed projects. The two indexes in the back include a listing of projects by number and a listing of projects alphabetically by project name. In the projects by category section is where the detailed project sheets are for each of the CIP projects proposed to either be carried forward as an existing project or new projects identified in the 2-year budget. There are not detail sheets included for projects that are proposed in the outer 3 years of the plan. The project detail sheets are where you can find out all the information about the project, the description of the project, what the project's doing, the project manager, justification for why the project is needed, the consistency with the city's general plan, any operations impact upon completion of the project, when the project is anticipated to start and finish, the City Council CIP priority of the project, as well as the funding sources of the 5-year plan. The detail sheet should include all the pertinent information one would need to find out about the project. As I mentioned, each project states a City Council CIP priority. The priorities were established in 2009 for guidance to staff in prioritizing capital projects. The definitions were subsequently updated in 2015 to add City Council top priorities to the definition of priority number 1. In addition, all CIP projects that come before City Council during the year have the CIP priority listed in the staff report. So now we're just going to switch gears from the background and informational discussion to reviewing the proposed CIP budget. Like I mentioned, there are 10 project categories this year, which are listed in numerical order on this graph, the greatest proposed budget to the least, with water proposing the greatest budget of $30.1 million over the next 2 years, and an overall proposed budget of $97.1 million. Total proposed carryover of existing projects is $47 million. We also included the current deferred maintenance requirements of $17.2 million, which is related to streets, and I'll discuss this in greater detail a little on in the presentation. But I do want to point out that that figure is a little less than what was included in the staff report for tonight, as we have more updated figures after meeting with Public Works yesterday based on the completion of the 2018 pavement management program. The historical comparison of the CIP budget is presented in this graph. You can see that the total budget amount and the total number of projects has varied over the past 10 years. Although this is the highest proposed budget in the past 10 years, and on the surface that may give some cause for concern, but the bulk of the increase is from a handful of projects. The increase in the water category is primarily for the Los Robles groundwater utilization project, with a total proposed budget of $15.8 million, of which staff is anticipating a $6 million grant to fund that project. The majority of the increase in the streets category is due to the Willow Lane Improvements Project, with a total budget of $4.6 million. The majority of the increase in the landscape and streetscape category is due to the streetlight acquisition project, with a proposed budget of $4.5 million. And the proposed facility category increase is primarily due to a solar canopies project at the Municipal Service Center, with a proposed budget of $1.9 million, of which $1.5 million is funded by a grant, and the CAP Master Plan project with a budget of $1 million. I hear some feedback. For initial design costs for the CAP Campus Master Plan. Those 5 projects alone total over $27 million. I do want to reiterate that staff has done its due diligence in evaluating fund balances and potential revenues, income in the future, and ensuring that the proposed CIP budget presented tonight is financially feasible and prudent spending investment in the city's infrastructure. As we get into our discussion of the proposed CIP budget, some of the main themes that staff identified during this planning process are not new. The city is over 50 years old, and we've been saying for the past several years that we've moved into a maintenance mode. Our infrastructure is aging, everything from our buildings to our streets to our water and wastewater infrastructure. And it costs to keep them properly maintained on a schedule that we're not deferring maintenance and thus increasing costs by deferring them. We're seeing rising costs in the construction industry, which directly impacts the bids we're seeing on our construction projects. We also continue to be strategically focused in several areas, including lighting, landscaping, and stormwater, which I will discuss further on in the presentation. On a positive note, after years of talk and planning, we're finally starting to set aside funds and put into action items for the downtown strategic plan and the town square concept. City Council just completed their annual goal setting at the last meeting on March 19th. We did the goal setting a little earlier this year so staff could work on incorporating the City Council top priorities into the budget planning process. The bolded priorities are those that staff are proposing CIP projects for and setting aside resources as part of the proposed budget before you tonight. Of course, the majority of the projects are public infrastructure projects, and throughout this process, we have ensured again that the proposed budget is fiscally sustainable. We included the CAP Campus Master Plan project in this budget cycle, as well as various environmental sustainability projects, such as the Los Robles groundwater project and solar projects. This map provides a good overview of the 132 proposed projects and how we're really touching areas all throughout the city. So the list presented on this slide is the top 10 projects based on total budget with any carryover, so you can get an idea of where funds are proposed to be spent. These 10 projects account for almost 40% of the total proposed budget of $97 million. This graph highlights the funding sources for the proposed CIP budget. The bulk of the funding is coming from the water fund, gas tax funds, wastewater fund, general fund, and the lighting landscape funds, which combined are approximately 75% of the total proposed budget. The rest of this discussion will center around each of these funding sources and highlighting various projects. So we'll start off first with the city's general library funds. The general fund supports primarily improvements and maintenance of city facilities and the library as well. Total proposed budget is $9.3 million with a carryover of $15 million. Carryovers are primarily with a handful of projects that have already gone before the City Council, including the Cavalier renovation project, CAP mechanical upgrades, and the CAP master plan. The general fund is the city's discretionary funding source. It can be used for any purpose. Funding for the CIP program out of the city's general fund is from capital reserves that have already been set aside for capital projects, not from ongoing general operating revenues. There are adequate revenues in the city's general fund to pay for the proposed budget. Highlighting a few of the proposed projects, the Teen and Adult Centers Improvements Project is actually a modification of an existing teen center gym expansion project that has been on hold in the city's CIP budget since 2007 with a $5 million holding account. As part of this budget planning process this year, city staff worked closely with CRPD staff to identify if a new full-size gym at the teen center was really needed in today based on other gyms that have been constructed over the past decade. CRPD staff engaged teen and adult users of both the facilities, their staff, and they outreached to middle and high schoolers and developed a new design based on this extensive outreach to construct a new outdoor use on the vacant outdoor space adjacent to the teen center with such features as a hard court for basketball, handball, a small skate area, an area where there could be outdoor concerts held, with the Battle of the Bands, for example, and other features. In addition, with the facilities nearing 30 years old, improvements would be made to the interiors of both facilities, including renovating the outdated bathrooms, possibly expanding the kitchen at the teen center to allow for a demonstration kitchen, and other small projects. The budget for the project would be reduced from $5 million to $3 million based on this revised scope. The city and CRPD would enter into an agreement similar to that with our successful partnership with the Saltway Trails Community Park. With the center celebrating their 30th anniversaries this year, this would be an exciting time to partner to bring these well-used facilities up to date. The Teal Boulevard Streetscape project design is 95% complete at this point. Subsurface utility investigation results are being analyzed and incorporated into the final design, and the project is going to go to bid this summer and scheduled for construction to finish next year in conjunction with the Lupes project. This is the first phase of the project and only touches Teal Boulevard from Zuniga to Herbs Road. Phase 2 will commence in conjunction with the CAP master plan, so we're not having to redo any of the work that we've done. The CAP master plan project includes the carryover from City Council's authorization for the pre-design and outreach earlier this year, as well as an additional $1 million to start on the design based off the results from this first phase. The Woolsey Fire Restoration Project is budgeted from the general fund to restore landscaping throughout the fire-damaged areas. However, staff is working diligently with FEMA on a weekly basis to receive funding for paying for the restoration costs. If approved by FEMA, the city's share of the cost will be less than 3%. This graph highlights actual general fund expenditures over the past 6 years, as well as the proposed budget for each year. The fiscal year 13-14 high of $5.8 million is primarily due to the Cavally lobby renovation, as well as the Herbs Road utility undergrounding improvements. Although the proposed budget is higher than the most recent few years, it is in line with previous years. So on to the gas tax funds. The proposed budget is $16.6 million with a small carryover. Gas tax revenue, unlike the general fund, is restricted to streets and roads projects, including pavement maintenance, sidewalks, bike lanes. The funding for the proposed budget is from a few sources, including gas tax, our highway users tax account, the newly enacted SB1 revenue, and TDA funding. Based on the declining revenue sources, especially previous to SB1 revenue, the city had built up deferred maintenance, and we're increasing that balance each year until this current budget cycle. City Council made the prudent decision to transfer one-time general fund dollars of over $10 million to streets and roads last budget cycle. The investment paid off in making a reduction in the deferred maintenance amount, as shown from the chart in fiscal year 17 to 19 of $1.4 million. This current budget cycle does not propose any further deferred maintenance. And this graph just gives you a good visual representation of the history of streets funding sources and requirements. You can see based on the 2015 pavement management program that the required spending amount to keep the city's streets and road in its current condition is $6.5 million a year. In past years, the city had a variety of funding sources that were available, including RDA funds, which the state eliminated, federal and state grant funding, which has been very limited in years, and also TDA funding. Legislation passed several years ago, however, restricted our TDA funding to be used on streets and roads only for those cities that had a population under 100,000, thus contributing to the gap in funding beginning in fiscal year 14-15. Based on recent legislation passed last year through Assemblywoman Irwin, Thousand Oaks received a carve-out, and starting this current fiscal year 18-19, we are able to utilize TDA funds again for our streets and roads. The amount this year was $1 million. That combined with the SB1 revenue, which is anticipated to equate $3.3 million in fiscal year 2021, should fully close that gap. However, we are updating the pavement management program right now, which has the potential to increase our $6.5 million figure in the future. The majority of projects proposed in the CIP budget are related to the pavement management program, overlay, slurry, curb ramps. There's also $800,000 set aside for sidewalk. Onto the capital projects and developer fees funds. The proposed CIB budget is $5.3 million, with a carryover of $8.8 million. Developer fees are levied on new development projects in the city. The funds are used to construct public facilities, including streets, sidewalks, traffic signals. The city has experienced a decrease in developer fees due to build-out. I also just want to highlight that the majority of fee revenue is derived from traffic impact fees. Staff will be returning to City Council at the next meeting with an item covering modification to the traffic impact fees, with the impact shown in this proposed budget, the fund summary. Public Works staff will be proposing changing to a single citywide traffic impact fee, which is the new Fund 544 in the CIP budget document. We're proposing spending down the fund balances in the existing traffic impact fee funds to zero based on moving to one fee. A quick highlight of a few major projects funding by the Capital Projects Developer Fee Funds. The Los Feliz Sidewalks project with a budget of $663,000 from this fund, as well as an almost $900,000 grant in the small carryover. We're currently awarding the design contract at the next City Council meeting. Construction is expected about a year and a half from now, primarily due to easement negotiations with the property owners, which takes a lengthy amount of time. Lawrence Drive at Teller Road project, proposed budget of $1.3 million with a $160,000 grant. This project has not yet started, but is proposed for this new budget cycle. The Willow Lane Improvements project with a proposed budget of just under $630,000 from developer fees and a $2.5 million grant is 60% in design completion, and staff is actively doing utility coordination and starting right-of-way discussions with the property owners. Construction is anticipated to begin next summer. Lighting and landscaping funds proposed budget is $8.1 million with a carryover of just under $1 million. Funds are primarily from the lighting and landscaping special assessments and ad valorem property tax revenue. As I mentioned previously, there are some challenges in funding future capital projects. Back when we did the fiscal sustainability study in 2016, the lighting fund was identified as a challenge. Staff worked on creative ideas to decrease expenditures, and thus the lighting fund experienced the past few years increases to fund balance, to where fund balance is anticipated to exceed $1 million this fiscal year. This is a huge turnaround from requiring general fund support in the past. Thus, this proposed budget is including $1.4 million in various traffic signal upgrade projects, which will spin down the fund balance, but is necessary based on our aging traffic signals and the cost of replacing failing equipment. The new project staff is proposing is for the acquisition of Edison-owned streetlights throughout the city at $4.5 million in this budget cycle. If successful, this project would require funding into the lighting fund, potentially a general fund loan. However, the acquisition would greatly lower the costs of electricity and maintenance that are charged by Edison of the streetlights by owning them ourselves. So we're continuing to creatively strategize in the lighting fund and its future sustainability. With the landscaping fund, the demonstration project that started construction last week, and staff is actually evaluating the annexation of other areas of the city into the landscape assessment districts. The proposed CIP budget is $406,000 for the stormwater fund, and the projects are needed to meet permit requirements. There's a countywide stormwater assessment fund that the city has no control over and would require the county going through a Prop 218 ballot to increase that fee. The funding is inadequate to meet our capital requirements, and the fund receives a general fund support. There are many challenges and complexities to funding our stormwater programs. Municipalities throughout California face limitations in creating dedicated funding streams to manage the regulatory framework for stormwater management, including the requirements of the NPDES permit. There are a variety of legislative efforts, legal cases, and ballot measures that have formed the foundation of these financial constraints. The federal and state grants fund proposed CIP budget is $5.8 million with a small carryover. I've already gone over the Los Feliz Sidewalks project and the Willow Lane project. An additional project with grant funding is the Rancho Road Sidewalk and Bike Lanes project. It's currently in review with Caltrans, and construction is expected to begin early next year with a $1.6 million grant, plus additional funding for a total of $1.9 million. The Water Fund proposed CIP budget is $31.7 million with a carryover of $10.8 million. As previously mentioned, the largest project is the Los Robles Groundwater Well Project in the amount of $15.8 million with an $800,000 carryover. The project is currently in the pilot program phase with an anticipated grant of $6 million to fund this project. This would construct a treatment system at the golf course to supply potable water to the golf course and other city customers and reduce our purchase and reliance on imported water. The treated groundwater can be delivered at a lower cost than purchasing imported water. La Granada Pump Station has a proposed budget of $1.65 million and a carryover of $3.4 million. It will be starting later this year. It incorporates fire flow and provides a redundant source of water and is cheaper than constructing an entirely new reservoir. Based on our aging infrastructure, the city is currently doing reservoir improvements at each of the city's reservoirs. Proposed in this budget cycle is Tara Reservoir and La Granada Reservoir. Also of note is various projects coming from the city's water master plan. The wastewater fund proposed budget is $15.1 million with a $6.2 million carryover. The Hill Canyon Treatment Plant Secondary Clarifier number 2 and number 3 projects are to start later this year. Unit Y is a consent item tonight, and Unit W is coming to City Council this spring. Also proposed is funding for the Hill Canyon Treatment Plant Master Plan implementation projects. We're currently in the process of developing the Hill Canyon Treatment Plant Master Plan, so projects have not yet been identified. I want to mention that we're in the process of developing the water and wastewater financial plans currently. It'll go to City Council later this summer or fall. The funds have been building up capital reserves in anticipation of the amount of infrastructure maintenance projects that need to occur. So although the amounts are on the larger amount, the funds are prepared to handle the projects and are not anticipated to impact the rate development we're currently underway in, as these capital projects have been included in prior financial plans. The Transportation Fund proposed budget is $4.3 million with a carryover of $3.8 million. There are a variety of projects proposed, from new electric buses to electrical vehicle charging stations. However, the projects will not move forward unless grant funding is awarded. In addition, staff is coming back to City Council in May with a new bus services contract, and we'll be having an extensive discussion at that time on the future of the transit program in the city. Other enterprise funds include the Golf Course Fund, the Theaters Fund, and the Solid Waste Funds. The golf course proposed budget of $500,000, which is $250,000 each year, is not for any identified projects, but just funding set aside in case there's unexpected improvements or maintenance that needs to occur. Theaters is just a carryover of the existing budget for the Kavli renovations project that will be constructed during August and September, with funding coming from the general fund. And the solid waste funding of $45,000 is part of the solar canopies at the MSC project, which is multi-funded. In summary, the proposed fiscal years 2019-2021 CIP budget of $97.1 million is financially feasible across all funds. Staff spent a significant amount of time evaluating each fund and reviewing projects to ensure that the proposed budget is a prudent investment of city resources. We are a maintenance community with aging infrastructure that costs money to ensure it's properly maintained so as to not defer maintenance and increase long-term costs. We believe this presents a sustainable budget. So tonight's recommendations are to receive the information on the proposed fiscal year 2019-20 and fiscal year 2020-21 CIP budget as presented and schedule a public hearing for June 11th, 2019. And with that, myself and staff are available for any questions.
That was really well done.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. No, well, you didn't sit through John Adams.
About John Adams?
Councilmember Bill de la Pena.
Thank you, Mayor McCoy. Thank you for the thorough presentation. I appreciate it. You mentioned, I mean, obviously this budget is the expenses, proposed expenses are higher than in the past, no doubt. And you say you believe that this is a financially sustainable budget. How strong is your belief? I mean, I'd like to know.
Yeah, thank you. I would not be doing my job as the city's finance director if I were presenting a proposed budget to the city council that I did not believe in. So my belief is very strong.
Thank you.
Just clarification in case John is watching tonight. He did a wonderful job in finding you. Councilmember Engler.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to put my compliments on your presentation tonight. Very intense, and we, of course, have noticed the increase in the proposed budget, which is an eye catcher. But I also trust that you have looked at that, and it is a sustainable amount of money that we can put into the city. I wanted to compliment you also on two aspects of it. There's both a maintenance aspect to it, which I think is very important for us to recognize that we are an aging city, and that if we don't put this emphasis on maintenance, we'll find ourselves with a lot more deferred maintenance and a lot more issues coming up down the line, as some of our neighboring cities perhaps to our south have done. So I compliment you on identifying those maintenance items that need to be addressed. And secondarily, I think you have a couple of items in there that address the future somewhat, in that the Las Robas Golf Course water project, which is aimed at reducing our reliance on imported water, will help in the long run for our city to become more sustainable, both ecologically and financially. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Councilmember Engler. Councilmember Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of comments and a question or two. Number one, I'm glad that back in 2015, the council deemed it fit to include our top 10 priorities in the rating system for these different projects, because there's two in there that are directly related to our top 10 priorities, and that's the campus master plan, by which we will re-envision this whole building and build a town square out in front, and I think that's going to bring huge public benefit. And also the Boulevard streetscape, where we'll widen our sidewalks, beautify our landscaping, and hopefully attract people to our downtown. Glad to see that those are top number one priorities. Last year, this is an ambitious program, but ambition pays off, as it did in the last year or so. We built a absolutely beautiful, award-winning project on Westlake Boulevard, and that's my neighborhood. And I was walking on it this weekend. It's great. It's so nice to not be walking along the street or in the street with cars going by 45, 50 miles an hour. So it's safe and it's beautiful. It's a great project. And also the council and our staff were able to resurface 50 miles of city streets, the biggest resurfacing project in the history of the city. Thanks to a robust general fund, the council deemed fit to designate some funds to make that happen. And I know we're strapped a little bit with RDA funds, like not a little bit, we don't have any anymore, TDA funds and the like. However, with the gas tax and the fact that we can use TDA funds once our transit needs are met, it looks like we're going to be okay for this fiscal year and maybe the next. But you mentioned in the report there could be higher construction costs going forward, and that could leave us with a shortfall. And I know it might be hard to estimate, but is there any thought on what that shortfall might be? Maybe Cliff might know. He knows a little bit about streets and roads.
Yeah, if you recall looking at that chart, we do this plan about every 5 years. Now that reducing that deferred maintenance last year will definitely help.
Yes.
The increased cost, but the cost of materials and construction have increased over the last 5 years when that estimate was done. Previously, the estimate went from 4.5 to 6.5. I don't expect it to go up another $2 million, but I wouldn't doubt that it'll be at least half that.
Okay. Well, that's better than 2 million, so it's more incremental. So that sounds like something we can handle, because I know how important it is to our residents that we have streets and roads in good shape. We're in the top rating in the county of all 10 cities, so I want to make sure we continue to do that. And just a couple other little things. With the metamorphosis that the boulevard's going through, witness Oak and Iron opening up in the eastern end of the boulevard, we hope to see more pedestrians, more people out on the sidewalks. We have another project coming, Tarantula Hill, that should be done in June, and then ultimately we will have 299 almost across the street from that. So with all the crosswalk projects we're doing, I'd like us to take a look at a crosswalk there. I think that that'd be something that the Capital Improvement Committee could take a look at. I think see some real synergy between those two projects. Could be a lot of people, and I want to be able to get back and forth. I know I personally went to the Oak and Iron opening and parked across the street, and it is a challenge to get across Thousand Oaks Boulevard, 4 lanes and a median, especially if you're a council member and they see you. No, they leave me alone. But let's take a look at that if we could, please. And as far as the golf course project, Councilmember Engler mentioned that. Are we still thinking that we might actually be able to cut our imported water by as much as 10% because of that project?
That's correct.
That's a good number. That's going to be a very worthwhile project. It's a little on the expensive side, but it's going to pay for itself in the long term. That's a great project. And then finally, blinking yellow left turn signals, are they on the agenda here to add a few more?
Yes, they are part of those traffic safety improvements.
Great. Yeah, I think the public responded very well to them. How many more will we be getting?
We're currently budgeting around 6 a year, which seems to be kind of a sweet spot in the budget. If we have additional or extra funding available, we can add to those. Again, some of those projects, as we've spoken, require larger investment than just the lights. So we're trying to phase those with the change out of those panels, the replacement of the panels, which drives up the cost of the project. But we're working on them.
Good. Yeah, I'd say those blinking left turn signals turned out better than expected. They've been safe and very well received, and they keep traffic flowing. And traffic's always been a concern of the citizens, so that's helping. All right, great report, very thorough. I knew you took a lot of time with it. I appreciate very much your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Adam. Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, I feel like I need to say something. You know, to sit here for 2 hours and 15 minutes, you know, somebody who's used to talking, it's really, especially when you hear all these provocative things that you'd like to respond to, but of course, I know we have this rule that you don't respond to public testimony. I was going to say some of the same things that Councilman Engler and Councilman Adam said. I would hope that this water project on the golf course would enable us to save, obviously, on the use of imported water, which should be a saving. But I see Tom Hare in the audience. We found out he had this wonderful project. We cut back 29% in the water use in lawns in the park, only to find out that the water company raised our rates to the extent that we didn't save any money. So I don't know if he felt frustrated in that or not, but I do like the idea of using groundwater if we can do it. And let me ask a question on that. You say it's potable. Do you mean that the water we get from that we could not only use on the golf course, we could also, it would be drinking water also?
That's correct. We are proposing at this point to treat it to a potable level that meets our existing water quality.
Is the reason we haven't used the tertiary water from the Hill Canyon plant that it would not pay if you had to pump it uphill to our golf course? Is that?
That's the primary reason, yes.
Because I know that the Park District is using Triumpho water on 3 of our parks. That is, you know, good enough for grass, but not recommended for human consumption. Although I did drink a cup of the Hill Canyon water right after we made it tertiary many years ago. I must say, not only sitting here all this time and wanting to respond and not being able to kind of makes you want to burst, but I really, if I may, this is not on point, but I really appreciate the amount of people who attended on that matter and the quality of their comments. That I really, know that they had done their homework and prepared very well for this. But I have gone over the budget, as I heard the other members of our board, our council, have done, and I think it's a very comprehensive budget, and the way I understand, because of the help of our talented. See, you're not the treasurer. You're the what?
Finance director and city treasurer.
Finance director, yes, who was kind enough to show me certain things about this yesterday, and I appreciate that. So although it's about a 60% increase over the former year's budget, I understand that it is necessary, it's comprehensive, and a lot of it is paid for. And I'd like to compliment you, Finance Director, on the quality of your presentation tonight. You're very eloquent, and anyway, it's a good. I finally, one other thing, having been here when we incorporated, I don't like to hear about this aging business. I don't know where that's coming from. It still seems like a new community to me, Mr. Mayor. So, thank you for indulging me.
I didn't say anything.
In the maintenance mode.
I'm in the maintenance, yeah.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much. We don't have any public speakers, I don't believe. Council discussion? Or motion? Councilmember Bilda La Peña?
Move to approve the proposed 2019-2021 capital improvement budget. We're receiving it, and then I guess it'll be scheduled for June 11th. Mm-hmm.
Do we need a vote on that? No? Vote? Yes. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, please state your vote. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 13, council issues, recommendations, follow-up reports on meetings, conferences attended by council members. Councilmember Engler and myself went back to Washington, D.C. Councilmember Engler, you participated in the National League of Cities, so I'm going to ask you to give a report on that if you would. I was back there for purposes of lobbying for the city, as were you, but you participated, so will you share with everybody?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the citizens for sending us back to D.C. to do work for the community with our elected representatives and also our education with the National League of Cities. National League of Cities, of course, is the parent organization of our California League of Cities, and both organizations are currently working to on this 5G issue as well. I attended several seminars at the National League of Cities concerning 5G and how the rollout is happening across the country. And as City Manager Powers pointed out, this is not just an issue that's affecting us locally. It's a nationwide issue that all cities are wrestling with. We did have a good session with all of our elected officials back there. Congresswoman Brownlee came off the floor to meet with us, which was very nice of her to take time out of her efforts to pass a infrastructure bill on the floor. She talked to us about 15, 20 minutes, went right back to the floors, and I appreciate her efforts. We also met with the staff of both Feinstein and Harris, and in all those meetings we did some lobbying for different projects here in the city, both in terms of infrastructure and the National Endowment of the Arts as well. The biggest item I think that we have probably coming from the federal government, we did have a good meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers, and Army Corps of Engineers is looking at the south branch of the creek that comes under the freeway there at Borchard Road. That is a floodplain, and that project is moving further and further up. They are now looking at a feasibility study.
Phase 2.
Phase 2 of the feasibility study. So our efforts there may pay off here within a shorter period of time than we had thought. So once again, thank you so much for allowing us to go, become educated, also to spread the word of what we are trying to do out here in Thousand Oaks to our representatives back in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Councilman Brangler. It was a great trip. Lots was accomplished. Mr. Powers, you have any follow-up items?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Our next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be held 2 weeks from this evening on the 23rd of April. And we have a special presentation from New West Symphony. 2 public hearings currently slated, one for user fees, one for traffic mitigation fees. And 2 public hearings, or 2 department reports, one on Arts and Culture Commission update, and another one from our Homeless Ad Hoc Committee, and a series of consent calendar items that are still taking shape. And that meeting will be held on the 23rd of April at 6 p.m. That's all I have.
Ms. Noonan, you had some closed session items?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We have 3 closed session matters tonight. The first one is conference with labor negotiators, city designated representatives, the city manager, the city attorney, the assistant city manager, deputy city manager, for employee organizations TOSIA, SMA, and TOMA, and the executive managers, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Second matter is conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Allison Piazza versus Tony Rivelas, case number 56-2018, 00513-538, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9a. And then the last matter is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9d4. There's 1 case. I don't anticipate having anything to report.
Thank you, Ms. Noonan. We will adjourn to our regular meeting April 23rd, 2019. I wish the lovely people of Thousand Oaks a good night.